Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Cool Roots application lightning talk. I'm Mina Jahanshahi from Geoplex. I'm going to be running through it with you today. Usually I run this presentation with Candice Jordan from City of Melbourne and Vicky Brandy also from City of Melbourne, but they're not here with us today. Now, I know that usually when we're thinking about things around heat and sunshine, we're not thinking about lightning. So I will keep this quick because of the impeding lightning talk. So a bit about the project. The City of Melbourne is very well known for using new ways to adapt and mitigate climate change. So these are things like the urban forest projects, improving water efficiency in parks and gardens, and trialing cool roof technologies to minimize urban heat island effects, which is kind of brought upon this Cool Roots application. So the Cool Roots application is, what it does is it flips the traditional wayfinding approach that we're used to. So usually we go from a shortest route from A to B. What we're trying to think of right now is the more thermally comfortable route from A to B. So if you imagine going from office to office, you want to get there nice and relaxed and not too hot, right? Whereas if you go the most sunny way, you'll probably end up quite sweaty. So what does it mean to you to be thermally comfortable? It's a bit of an amorphous kind of idea. And what we're trying to do is put some tangible spatial data around it. And we've done that with a spatial multicriteria analysis, and we've served it up with a web-based application. So for those who are uninitiated, the spatial multicriteria analysis looks at trying to put some layers together, put it into one big kind of thermal comfort base, which is what we're seeing here. And then we can try and get a bit of a prioritization exercise undertaken. So we have 4 themes, and from that we have 10 layers. And from those 10 layers, we've got 3 guiding principles. So one of them is impedance. You don't want to be stuck at traffic lights. The second one is the built form or the urban heat island effects. So if you think about a big concrete building compared to a beautiful park and garden, of course, that big concrete building will be nice and hot for you. The final one is around shadowing. So there's different kinds of ways that we can prioritize shadowing. So underpasses and bridges, trees, as well as public transportation shelters. But Mina, you're kind of forgetting building shadows and awnings and trees. No, we are not. We have got them included, but they are so important. We've kind of created a separate overlay for them, which goes over the thermal comfort base. So one of the things which we thought was really important was a series of ground truthing exercises. So I went out on a 42-degree day and checked against a lot of our layer themes and prioritizations and in control scenarios. So as you can see here, we've got a thermal picture as well as the thermal gun, which has been quite useful in COVID as well. We noticed that the urban heat island does have quite an effect on thermal comfort, but the shadowing has the most significant impact on surface temperatures and thermal comfort. As we can see here, we've got a 22-degree surface temperature for a park and garden in the shade, and then 67 degrees for surface temperature on asphalt. So what we also did was we did a point-to-point shadow analysis, so from the sun down to the ground, to see where the buildings would end up casting their shadows. And we checked that our modeled shadows are correct, and they were. And what we also noticed was not all sun is equal. And what do I mean by that? We created a solar accumulation layer. So we're looking at each raster cell and how much sun it gets over the course of a day. We did this in half-hourly increments from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And you can, to give you a bit of context of why this is important, if you imagine somewhere like Parliament, the steps of Parliament House, that gets sun for most of the day. It's only gets a bit of shadow in the morning, and that's not really effective shadow. When you compare it to somewhere like the QV building, which is, well, the QV rooftop, which is a bit of a canyon of very tall buildings casting shadows on it, it is much cooler there than it would be around Parliament House, and that's from that solar accumulation. Another additional temporal resolution which we added in was around the fortnightly epochs of the sun location. So the sun moves relative to us, or we move relative to the sun. So that changes the azimuth and altitude that you have for the sun in summer. And that makes a really big impact on where the shadows get cast. So how do we serve this up? It's great to do all this analysis, but we want to make sure everyone's using it. We served it up using an open source routing engine so that City of Melbourne could have an open source routing engine. It's the routing data came from City of Melbourne's pedestrian network and then OpenStreetMaps for the cycling network. And that's just because of turn-based information being available. The application and routing engine were deployed on AWS, so it's a cloud-based solution and based on a Mapbox mapping API. One of the things we're really focused on was making sure that the user experience and user interface was done at the forefront so that it is a really seamless, elegant output that we've got going on here. And the 3D buildings were included to give a bit of context and some model confirmation. So a user can actually see where the shadows are supposed to be lying with the time that they're looking at there. Now this application will be live up and running for you when you're ready. Feel free to come and have a chat with me. You can always find me everywhere. And I know lightning doesn't strike twice, but I'm going to be available for some Q&A right after this presentation. Thanks, guys.